You're listening to the Back Home Network, presented by Home Field Apparel. And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call, as tonight your Indiana Hoosiers defeat the Penn State Nittany Lions 83-78. Is the Hoosiers' third win in their last four games, moves Indiana to 17-11, 8-9 in conference play, and continues Indiana's streak of playing better basketball. You know, you go after losing whatever it was, 6 out of 7, and they go on the road and beat Michigan State. You drop a hard-fought game against UCLA, but then come back and annihilate Purdue in the second half. And look, tonight's game was not nearly as impressive as that win over Purdue. It was, uneven at times. The defense wasn't quite as locked in. There were some turnovers, but playing without Malik Reneau, who was out with the flu, and getting into a similar late game position that they've been in multiple times this year and failed to execute down the stretch. This time they did execute down the stretch and they were able to get a victory. And look, we don't apologize for Big Ten wins around here, and who knows where this will lead, but it continues, Indiana's march toward the bubble, toward possibly getting an NCAA tournament berth. They've got to keep winning. They got to keep stacking wins, but that was the objective tonight. Back up the Purdue win by getting another win, and they did it. And that's the bottom line. That's all that matters, and we're going to break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. I'm Jared Morris, here with Coach Brian Tonsoni. Ryan Phillips is here as well. And gentlemen, let's start this show the way that we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And the banner moment for me was, I don't remember the exact score, but Indiana was down 2 with 4 or 5 minutes to go. And again, as I said, I think at that moment, all IU fans are thinking, okay, here we go again. It's a close game down the stretch. What is this team going to do? Are they going to execute? And Trey Galloway stepped up and hit 2 of the most confident three-pointers that I can remember him taking and making as an Indiana Hoosier. And Trey had struggled in the first half. I think he had 4 points, 4 assists, 4 turnovers in the first half, but really bounced back, finishes with 16 points, 4 of 5 from downtown, along with the 9 assists. But sometimes when you're a senior like Trey is, the timing of the plays that you make in big situations are so important. And, that really felt to me like kind of a pivotal moment in the game. Okay, Penn State's got this lead. Are we just going to kind of let them nurse this lead as it goes down the stretch? And Trey emphatically said no, makes those threes. It put Indiana up 4. I don't think Indiana trailed again after that. I'd have to check. But that really felt like the turning point for me down the stretch. There were some other plays that you could choose. Myles Rice had a little 5-0 run of his own a couple of minutes later, hitting that 3 in the corner. But those 2 threes by Trey Galloway really, to me, in the moment, felt like Indiana asserting control of this game. Hey, we're not going back and forth anymore. We're at home. This is our game. And that's what seniors do down the stretch in big games. Hat tip to Trey, who really came through in the second half in a game when his team needed him. With one of his other leaders, and Malik Reneau, out, he stepped up and was huge in helping Indiana get this victory tonight. All right, our banner moment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 8th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. As you know by now, if you listen to this show, to all the other shows on the Back Home Network, if you follow them on Twitter, Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel that you will find anywhere. And the great thing is, since IU is their flagship school, that more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. They recently put out the knit sweaters with the Script Indiana University logo on them. I am wearing my favorite hat, the old school Bison logo hat. The latest item that I got from Home Field is the Lee Corso Indiana crew neck, which, when you put on, it just feels like you're just enveloping yourself in the most comfortable fabric. It's such a comfortable shirt, and obviously it's got so much history with it. And that's, that pretty much describes everything Home Field does. And it's not just IU. They have over 180 schools on their site. So Home Field is a great one-stop shop for any gift giving that you need to do, any shopping that you need to do, whether for yourself or other people. Go to homefieldapparel.com. When you do, you can use our promo code HOME23 and you will get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. Once again, the website, homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. All right, it is time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. Coach, over to you. It's Tonsoni time. What's on your mind?
Well, this was a great offensive night for Indiana. I think they struggled defensively. We'll probably talk about that a little bit in giving up points per possession. But, man, they ran some really good stuff, I thought, in the first half. Sometimes it didn't result in a basket. And you got to look at it. It's not a bad offensive set if you miss. They actually ran a flare screen for Goody in the first half, which I thought was something new off the top because he had hit a couple of threes. They put Ballo on the move and got him a low post catch off a little of a rub screen, a back screen. I thought that was really good. And they continue to play well when they play in transition. But tonight was an offensive performance that we haven't seen. When we get to the stats, the three-point shooting that you referenced in the banner moment, Rice had 2 5-minute segments, 5-0 runs by himself that were key in the game. So tonight was really a fun offensive night. And it's, we've kind of beaten a dead horse. You had one post player available for the most part, and you had the backup. So you played, 4 smaller guys, even though Mbako, whatever, and it works offensively. You still can go to Ballo, who had a great night inside, and you can still shoot 15 threes and maybe even more threes, but you hit 10 threes. That's why you won this game, because defensively, I thought Indiana really struggled guarding athleticism. But, man, that's fun to watch when you play that kind of basketball.
Absolutely. Ryan, over to you. What's your rant or rumination?
Yeah, in a couple of weeks, Mike Woodson will no longer be the head coach of Indiana basketball, and you're going to have to find somebody to come in and take that job. And I'll tell you a guy who's going to make that job a heck of a lot more attractive if he's still here, and that's Myles Rice. And we saw why in the second half. I mean, this is a guy who struggled all year. We saw what he could do at Washington State. That really hasn't translated here, and he's struggled. But if you saw him in that second half, he scored 11 of his 13 points. He stepped up and hit 2 incredibly confident threes. He just plays with energy. He gets guys around him moving. 16 minutes in that second half after not starting, plus 10. I just think that Myles Rice has all these skills that we saw early in the season that have kind of gone away, and it feels like it was a bit of confidence, a lack of confidence for him. But when that guy is playing hard and he's locked in, he is a really, really good point guard. And I'll tell you, the hardest position to fill in college basketball is point guard, is finding your right point guard. And I have a feeling that whoever they bring to come in here is going to have an offensive system that relies heavily on guards, because they've relied on the post way too much for too long, and they're going to want to flip that on its head. Having that guy already on campus is going to be huge moving forward. So I think Myles Rice showed tonight why he is a big piece, not only right now as Indiana tries to make a run down the stretch to the tournament, but why he can, if he chooses to come back, can be a really big piece of next year's team and moving forward in the right system with the right coaches to develop him. That guy can be dangerous, and he could be a big deal in the Big Ten and nationally too. And I thought tonight we saw him come back in that second half, and we saw the guy we were expecting to have all season.
Yeah, and look, Myles Rice, Trey Galloway combined for 10 turnovers. That's too many turnovers. They had some bad plays, some unforced errors that you would like to get rid of. But they scored 29 points, and when Indiana needed buckets there late, they stepped up and made them. And so overall, this was a really good night for both of those guys, despite, the mistakes here and there. But, Coach, we got to spend some time here off the top talking about Oumar Ballo. Indiana went and beat Penn State earlier in the year, kind of got their first road win in the Palestra. They played that game without Malik Reneau, you'll recall, and Oumar Ballo really played well in that game. No Malik tonight, out with the flu. Ballo steps up, scores 20 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals. Did he come out of the game in the second half?
Yes, late.
Okay. Yeah,
a foul shooting, okay, late.
Yeah, so 18 minutes in the second half. But, just another tremendous game from him. Indiana didn't go to him a lot early, but really started going to him late in the first half. And he was able to produce, and this is a guy who didn't play this kind of minutes at Arizona and wouldn't have played this kind of minutes if Malik had been there. But, that's what you got to do. It's a team game, and you've got to step up when you're called on, and you might have to have a heavier burden if someone's out, if someone's not playing well, if someone's unavailable. And so a tip of the cap to Oumar Ballo, who has been through his ups and downs this season, but more often than not has been a guy that Indiana's been able to count on. And tonight they really needed him, and I thought he anchored a lot of what they did offensively, and that helped to open up then some of the three-point shooting that came later.
Yeah, he was an emphasis. I heard the announcer say that they kind of forgot about him for the first 15 minutes. I thought they went to him early, a couple possessions. So I think they wanted to go to him, and I think that's okay when, again, you have four perimeter guys around one, then go inside. If they stop the inside, then you get outside shooting. That's what happened today. But Ballo was fantastic offensively. I mean, I love when he runs the post and he kind of seals high at that arc of the defensive circle and then gets a play. He made a couple nice passes. And really, I thought he struggled to guard that kid, the Niederhausen guy, or however you pronounce that. I thought he struggled to guard that guy tonight until he picked up his third foul. And maybe this is a second segment meaningful moment. But he did a really good job of staying out of foul trouble, and I thought he guarded better. He had more verticality. He had a nice deflection on a dump down pass. So while there's a situation we've talked a lot about getting better and improving within the game. I thought he struggled defensively, but he didn't let that continue. He got better even in a foul situation. But he was fantastic tonight and draws a lot of attention, which opened up the ability to hit that lift guy on the throwback off the middle ball screen and the post-ups. I thought, without him there, Reneau would have done a very similar thing as well. But you have to give credit to him that he is a real tough load on the offensive end.
Ryan, your thoughts on the night for Ballo?
Yeah, I mean, 5 assists and 2 steals are things that you don't usually see him do. I'll say it. We talked about before we went on the air. Since his suspension, he's played really hard for Indiana. Sometimes not the best game, but that's a guy who has given it all over the past couple months, and there's no faulting that. There have been games where he hasn't put up the numbers he should, or whatever. But man, that guy plays hard. He's lugging that massive body up and down the court, and he's getting in position. He's chasing loose balls. He's chasing offensive and defensive rebounds. That's a guy who wants it. He wants to win. And I'll battle with that guy anytime. I think that he has really proven himself over the past couple weeks to be somebody that Indiana can really rely on. And I agree with what Coach said earlier, is that when it's just him in the post, Indiana's better. The team is just better with him and Goody and Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway, like that. They're better with just him in the post, and we assumed that would be the case early in the season. Him or Reneau, the one post would be better, and it's bearing out. And he has his best games when he's allowed more freedom to move on the inside.
Yeah, and I mean that's not and that's coming on the heels of a game where Malik Reneau was tremendous. But to your
absolutely,
point,
it's not a knock on Malik. It's not a knock on Malik.
But the point is when one of them are playing, and I think this leads to the other thing that I think was so evident tonight, was so evident against Purdue, has been evident during the stretch where Indiana's been playing better basketball, Coach, which is there's just a greater collective effort and kind of competitive focus and togetherness and purpose with how this team has been playing really over the last month. I mean, even though they lost some of those games, they were playing more competitively. And I think part of that is just, playing more lineups with guys like Anthony Leal and Luke Goody on the court, who aren't always guys that stuff the stat sheets, right? I mean, like Leal tonight, 6 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. I mean, that's actually, pretty good. Goody scores 10 points. I think their impact goes beyond that, though, because one thing that is evident watching this team is that when those two guys are on the court, they just raise everybody's level of focus and effort when they're out there. And that's natural because they always play that way. And, if you're looking around and your teammate is playing that way, you're naturally going to do it too. And I think Indiana has some guys that are really talented, but sometimes need something extra to get them revved up. They're not just consistently revved up on their own. And that's part of what having guys like Leal and Goody out there now playing so many minutes. I mean, Leal plays 30 tonight. Goody plays 35. It just seems to, and Galloway plays into this too. It just seems to help everybody else raise their level. And then you get the best out of Ballo and you get the best out of Myles Rice, And so, that's where tonight, I know it's only a 5-point win against Penn State, and there's still going to be, a lot of people who, just don't really want to enjoy any of this. But that to me is what has really made these last few games so much more enjoyable to watch. The basketball is not perfect. There's issues with it. There's a reason Indiana is going to be changing coaches, but you're seeing guys really coming together and playing with a purpose. And that is fun to watch. And I think Indiana fans will ride or die, win or lose, with a team that's going to lay it all out there. And then let's see who has more points at the end of the game. It did not feel like that in November and December. And it absolutely does feel like that a lot more now. And I credit those guys getting more minutes for helping to raise that level for everybody else.
Yeah, if you don't like the way a team's playing, change the elements, and that's what's happened, is they finally changed the ingredients, and this is much better. And I think that it was too long in coming, but it's working now. And it's worth sticking with it and riding it through, because these guys are proving that, the team is better with them playing more minutes, even though they're not the top recruits and they're not this, they're not that. They don't have NBA aspirations necessarily. Like, they're better with these guys on the floor. They are good college basketball players, and that's what the determining factor for playing at Indiana should be. I mean, it's great when your guys get up, are great and have all this talent and go to the NBA. It's great for the program. It's great for recruiting. It's great for all those things. But your job is to win games. And for that, you need really good college basketball players. And that's what this has been for Indiana.
It's the fit. Those guys fit well together, and it took a while to realize that those guys fit well. And when you have two or three of them out there and can fit another player out there that needs that elevation that you were talking about, Jared, that's the fit that we've all talked about all year. Indiana has found a better fit in the last 5 games by playing Goody, starting Leal, getting Galloway back in the starting lineup. It's, and the other thing is that when you do that, you don't really want to punish players by benching them or whatever, but it's called accountability. And if you want to play or you want to reclaim your starting position, then do things the way they need to be done. There is a component of that. You reward good play. I don't believe you have to start to be rewarded all the time, maybe more minutes than you would get. But those guys fit. They fit offensively. And even though individually they have their issues defensively, they fit defensively because they understand scouting reports and they're there. And then the other people have to lift up. And I think you find that in any organization, guys, where if you really take your top people, maybe not your talented people, but your just top overall people, however you evaluate that, and give them the key aspects of your business, then they'll lift the other people up. And all of a sudden you have a business or an organization that is just overachieving, and you can't win with 5 glue guys out there. You need talent, and those guys do have talent. I don't want to downplay it any. You can't have 5 glue guys, but what you want to have is a team of 10 or 12 guys that have glue guy characteristics. And I think that's been the struggle with the Woodson teams for a while. Is we have some talent, but did it mesh collectively for Indiana? And now it is, at least in the last 5 games. It's meshing because I think Indiana is the number one concern, or maybe it's a concern of putting Woodson out in a good run. Those guys are paying him back for their belief in him. But whatever it is, they have a concerted effort, a connected effort, a lot more than they did during the 7 or 6 games, losing 7 games out of 8 or whatever it was. This team's now connected, and that's how you win college basketball games. Tonight, Penn State's not very good, and you struggled to stop them, but you found a way to win because you were connected.
Yeah, I think that's a point I wanted to make before we had to break, Coach, is Penn State isn't good. And a lot of people will look at this win and be like, whatever, you beat Penn State, they're at the bottom of the conference, whatever. But this game means a lot because if you lost it, it probably sunk your tournament chances. So
100%.
That's the example, is that every game is important. Winning all of these games is important. It doesn't matter who you're playing. That's why you celebrate the win over Penn State, because you avoided falling off a cliff here. And you did what you had to do. And we know with Ace Baldwin and some of those other guys, they can go off and they can be good. And so Indiana beating them is an accomplishment because you continue to build that resume. They're going to play Washington on Saturday. Some people, if they beat Washington, won't be super excited because they beat Washington. But you know what? Beating Washington, much better than losing
on the road.
Washington. Yeah, so be happy about that. Be happy about a win anytime Indiana wins. But, people trying to talk down these wins. You've seen this year, a lot of good teams have lost to bad teams. And so avoiding that is a huge deal for a team that's trying to get on the bubble, trying to get into the tournament. You cannot have bad losses. And so winning tonight is an accomplishment because they avoided that and continue their march in the right direction.
I understand that not everybody adopts the mindset that I have or that we try to have of, at least that we're trying to have right now, of, hey, let's meet the team where we're at. Like, we all understand this team isn't overall playing up to the standard, the level of Indiana basketball. We get all that, but this is where this team is. Obviously, it's already been decided that there's going to be a change in the future, so you don't have to worry about that. So to me, it just makes all the sense in the world to let's just meet this team where they are right now and see if they can get better. And if that's not the mindset, what's the point in watching? And certainly, what's the point in commenting on it? Like, it's perfectly reasonable.
This is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, and I would not think bad of anybody if they're just like, okay, we're just trying to get on the bubble again. Like, I have higher expectations for Indiana basketball. I'm checking out for the season. Like, fine. I would not think bad about anybody. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense, when the team is getting better and they are starting to do some of the things that we've been asking, to downplay it. Like, a win is a win, and Ryan, I think it's a great point. Sometimes the value of a win is just avoiding the disaster of the loss, it
feels like a negative way to look at it, but it's true.
No, it's true. Just like winning at Michigan State was a season changer in terms of, whoa, now there's some heft on the resume. So there's different types of wins, and I think you need to appreciate them for what they are. And tonight, this Indiana team was able to play some ugly basketball in ways that we've seen, but the difference is they closed it out. And that is growth. That is, a step forward for this team. And that's all we have left between now and March. And then we're going to have a long, 5-6 months in between where there's no games. There will be the excitement, of a new coach and all that stuff. But for right now, we have these games and a team that still has a chance to make the tournament. And so let's see what they got. And so I'm really, very proud of them, obviously, for how they played in that second half against Purdue. I'm proud that they were able to carry it forward. Not the same level of execution, but at least the same result of getting the win. And you win 3 out of 4. Once again, this team, and this is the last question that I want to ask you guys before we go to break. And maybe it's something that we can cover more in lingering question down the road. But, Coach, this is now the second straight season, and we've kind of seen this with Mike Woodson teams where they really kind of come around a little bit late. We saw that his first season. Now that was a little bit different because it didn't feel like Indiana was quite so far off the NCAA tournament, radar. But they won the Big Ten tournament game when it didn't look like they were going to. Last season, it was more okay. The pressure is off. Now we go win these games down the stretch. And it's a little bit similar this season where it's almost like, okay, we kind of fell down to a point where everybody was kind of discounting our chances of the NCAA tournament. The decision is made that, the coaching, the coach is going to change next season. So it's almost like the entire narrative of the season changed. The pressure is removed. And then we started seeing better basketball. Like, what are the main factors that you think contribute to that? Is it kind of the pressure is removed and now guys are just playing a little bit more free? Is it kind of Mike Woodson, and we've talked about this before, having a bit of an NBA mentality where it can take him 20 to 25 games to kind of learn his team, and then he finally just kind of says, screw it, I'm going with the guys that are playing hard and doing what I'm asking to do, and he shortens that rotation and plays those guys and they play better? Like, what is it? Because clearly there's a bit of a theme here, and I guess we don't need to spend too much time on it because it's not like it's going to matter much for the future beyond this season, but I do find it interesting.
Well, for me, it's why there's going to be a new coach. You can't win consistently if you're only playing your best basketball in your last 3 or 4 games, or you have big, long losing streaks, right? So I think it's a lot of what you said. But as far as the players, because I want to focus on the players who won tonight rather than revisiting all the Woodson stuff that we've done.
Sure.
It is the pressure's off, right? And I bet they like Coach Woodson. Even coaches that get let go probably have really good relationships with their players, and those last a long, long time. I've heard coaches talk a lot about that when I'm out covering these games about the relationship and helping young men, and I think that's still a big piece of coaching, despite the NIL and the money. Is you're in it because you want to help young men achieve something on the court, but also mature as young men, no matter what level you coach. And so I'm sure Woodson has good talks with them and relationships, and they feel bad maybe that they had a hand in him having a struggle and all of that stuff. And so it's a little bit of circling the wagons. And so the pressure's off, and I think they really are playing with more purpose, which in itself says why we need to make the change, because why in a couple years wasn't there the purpose or the instruction or the knowledge of how to guard or do whatever. The strategies changes we've seen in the last 5 games from Coach Woodson, the roster, the lineup changes. We've seen a whole different program since it's been announced that Woodson is going, from the staff and from the players. But I think ultimately that's the reason why we're heading in the other direction. But give the players credit that they're really wanting to do something special for the guy that brought them to the university. I think that's the essence of sports and coaching, to be honest.
No, it's a great point. And I didn't intend the question as a criticism of Woodson necessarily. It's a curiosity and almost a frustration in a way where it's like we see some of these adjustments at the end of the season, and it kind of makes you wonder what if, because he has shown the ability to make some of those. And unfortunately in a few of these seasons, it's been too little too late. Ryan, any thoughts on that before we go to break?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it is all of those things, like a little bit of it's a dash of everything. But also, let's be real, these are going to be the last games Mike Woodson coaches as a head coach. And so maybe he's just kind of, because it does fit in with the pattern of he's changed the lineup and going with different guys and letting the seniors, a lot of whom are Indiana high school guys, lead the way. And, it's a veteran group that's getting all of the time. It's not what he has done his entire time at IU. He's mixed it up. He's had younger guys. He's trusted younger guys a lot, even if they've struggled. And he's not as patient, I think, as he was in the beginning of the season, and maybe last year a little bit too much. So I think it's a little bit of everything. I really do. And I think it's the players feeling less pressure, the coaching staff feeling less pressure. Also, some of these guys proving themselves for either the next level or the next season or whatever. I think that everybody is just hitting a stride at the right point in time, and you kind of wish it had happened earlier because this season would look a whole lot different.
Yeah. All righty. Well, coming up as we continue our breakdown of Indiana's 5-point win over the Penn State Nittany Lions, you might have missed, then go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
What's up, y'all? It's Devontae Green giving you the green light to watch Assembly Call after every IU game. Just don't listen to their opinions about shot selection. Remember, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Devontae. You are listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Jared Morris here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and we are breaking down Indiana's 83-78 victory over Penn State, and it is time now for tonight's meaningful moment you might have missed.
Meaningful moments that you might have missed.
This segment, as always, brought to you by our friends at Hoosier Ticket Project, where they help individuals and families experience IU athletic events in person for the first time through the generosity of alumni and fans. To learn more about how you can donate money or extra tickets to help create meaningful moments for other IU fans, visit HoosierTicketProject.org. That's HoosierTicketProject.org. A couple meaningful moments that stood out for me going back to the first half. And Coach, I'm going to send both of these to you. One, it kind of goes along with what you talked about early on about Indiana playing better offense. And there was a play about midway through the first half with some of the most beautiful rapid ball movement that we've seen. I think Myles Rice tried to throw a pass to a cutting Langdon Hatton that almost went out of bounds. And Hatton caught it, threw it to somebody in the corner. I don't remember who it was. And then it just whipped around the perimeter to Luke Goody on the right wing, who was able to, have a quick release, drained it. I mean, I have not seen the ball whip around like that since Crean, honestly. I can't remember many possessions.
And Goody knew it as soon as he caught the ball. Before he even shot it, he knew that three was going in.
Yeah, and it was just, it's not just that the passes were crisp and right on point. It was the recognition before each player got the ball of what they were going to do with it. It was just great awareness, great technique. It was beautiful offense to watch. And I'll tell you the other one that I really liked. Again, midway through the first half, I think the score might have been 26-21, something like that. Penn State had a 5-point lead. And, they may have been on like a 6-7 point run. I don't remember exactly. But it kind of felt in the moment like, okay, Penn State's grabbing a little bit of momentum here. And Woody called a timeout. And immediately after the timeout, they got the ball into Ballo. He scored, and then someone hit a three-pointer. And right like that, in 2 possessions, Indiana tied it up. And I just thought it was a really, really smart, intuitive move by the coach in the moment, feeling, hey, we've got a little momentum shift here, and you don't want that to get away from you. Who knows? Indiana ends up winning the game by 5 points. You can look back at that and say, what does it matter? But what if he doesn't take that timeout and a 5-point lead balloons to 10, which we've seen before? And so I just thought in the moment, I know I was feeling like, okay, we need something to change the momentum. Called a timeout, drew up a great play, and it just kind of got Indiana right back into it in the first half. So, credit to Woody for just, what I thought early on was just one of those little moments that I thought, just helped make sure that the first half didn't at all get away from Indiana.
Yeah, I thought that there was a lot of designs. I had all those written down as well for meaningful moments for me, as well as some other offense. I just thought the design Sunday defensively was fantastic going into the game against Purdue. The design offensively today was really, really outstanding. So that's some of that stuff we just got done talking about, which is opened up since the retirement announcement. That ball movement was just pretty. That was, I think, in between the 15 and 11-minute mark. I have that written down for a Goody 3. I talked earlier about the flare screen for Goody at 11:36. So after he hits that, they then go right back to Goody. Is something we've always been clamoring for when you got a guy who's hot. Do you run something? I haven't seen a pass off the top and then the shooter go off a flare screen since Steve Alford, I think, probably not that long ago. But that was awesome. But I think that's all.
Feels like
whatever's happening, if you're coaching your last few games, and things haven't been working, sometimes we're stubborn as coaches and it's going to work. It's going to work. We're going to keep doing something. Now I got 5 games left, 6 games left, whatever. I want to make the tournament. Let's try new things, because what's it going to, the pressure's off the coach too. But I thought there were so many good things there. I thought they right before your timeout at 4 minutes, there was that back screen post to Ballo, but they had him on the move, and he caught underneath the right basket and just went up and slammed it down. Right, that was good. And then you put Ballo at 4:23 in a side pick and roll when things were emptied out, and he was able to score. All of those things were good. Then in the second half, and I've seen this in the last previous games, when Leal's in the game, and even Goody on this one, they empty out the post. They flash and different coaches call it different things, but they empty out the dunker spot instead of sitting down opposite the post. And then you have a shooter on the opposite side, so now it's empty. And then especially when Penn State's fronting, then you either throw it over the top or you reverse it and get a high-low. And this time Goody fumbled it a little bit and was able to make something happen. So, again, some concepts that we haven't seen in a couple years for Mike Woodson are now showing up. And those were the meaningful moments for me, and they just couple yours, Jared. So I just kind of added in, and then I have one more later when you want to go. But there's so many little nuances offensively that were done tonight that were fantastic.
Ryan, any moments stand out for you before we get back to Coach's other ones?
Well, I think that it wasn't really one that was missed, but I mentioned my opening that Myles Rice, was huge tonight for Indiana in the second half. And with, I think it was 2:46 left, he hit a 3-pointer from the corner. It's the most confident I've seen him shoot a 3-pointer in months. And they found him in the corner. He stepped into that 3-pointer to make it 78-73. And then Trey Galloway gets a steal. Myles Rice, the first one out of the break, gets a layup, put it in. Game wasn't over at that point, but it certainly gave them a lot of cushion that helped when they were missing free throws a few minutes later. So we appreciate that. And I think that those moments are important, not necessarily because you didn't notice them, but the meaning of Myles Rice doing that is what makes it is what I think people need to consider and remember that, moving forward, if that guy builds confidence, this team's a whole different animal to deal with.
And that segment of Meaningful Moments No One Missed also brought to you by Hoosier Ticket Project. Coach, what were your other ones?
Yeah, Indiana had trouble on the toss back against the screen and roll. Ace Baldwin was reading that, and that's where Ace Baldwin got a lot of his 5 steals. Rice, after one of his 5-0 runs in the second half, threw one away that way. But they're trying to make that long diagonal to beat the tag guy. But, boy, Penn State did a good job at baiting Indiana in. So that's something to watch for, again, with the middle pick and roll. If they tag the big guy, they lift the opposite or backside wing, and they skip it. But Indiana turned the ball over 5 or 6 times. That's the only thing that was a struggle tonight offensively, was misreading those skip passes. Galloway had 2 or 3 of them. I think the total was 5 skip passes that were stolen tonight that generally are trying to throw out for threes on the pick and roll. And then the other one was just a fun one. Like Woodson was really ticked at the official, and the TV got him right where you could read his lips, right? And so I'm not going to say it because it'll give us an
Was that the Rice foul
rate
on the scramble?
It was no, I don't know. It might have been Galloway or something. It might have been that, but it
was Galloway's foul, I think. It was Galloway's third foul.
Oh, okay.
He said he didn't touch him, MFer, and you could just read his lips, and he was just into it. So I'm happy for Coach. I've had my criticisms of him, but in the coaching world, when you know it's done and you're trying really hard to have some 5 or 6 games and you're really fired up, and I know he's done that in the past. The TV just caught him, but I thought he's been more active on the sidelines, and he's had his thumb more on the game in these 5 games too than just sitting back and watching and evaluating. And so, again, I give him a lot of praise for, it's not fun. It happens, my buddy here says there's 2 types of coaches, those that have been fired and those that are about to be fired, right? That's just part of the coaching profession. So you feel when someone loses a job, you feel for him, whether you kind of agree with it or not. So I'm happy that he's finding 3-2 since the announcement, with a couple close losses and beating Purdue and a chance now to make the tournament. But I thought that was funny because when you're in college, you never know when that TV is going to catch you, and you got to get on those officials. I thought the officiating was poor tonight on both sides. I thought they let stuff go, missed travels. I thought it was one of the worst games of the year offensively. I think it had 0 impact on the game, but it just was bad overall.
The other thing that I'll mention, and there's not necessarily a particular moment, but it's just one of the areas of growth I've seen from Anthony Leal since he's gotten more minutes. He's always been a guy. I mean, gosh, we talked about this. I remember that the very first game he played, back when all those guys got suspended against Northwestern, and he played like 30-some minutes. One thing we've always talked about is he really feeds the post well, which is always, one of the things that's made him a valuable player in the system, because Indiana spends so much time feeding the post. But he was always a guy who would get the ball in the wing, take a dribble, maybe one dribble to get himself in position, and then would feed the post. And what you're really seeing from him now is a lot more confidence driving and dishing, 2, 3, 4 dribbles, attacking the basket, drawing a defender and dishing, and just really being able to attack in more ways and being able to pass on the move. He's making more passes in transition that I feel like in the past he would have been a little bit more risk averse. And you can just see his comfort level growing and his ability to do without, turning it over. Only 1 turnover tonight. So there was one in particular where he drove and almost like flipped it over the back of his head to Ballo, which was just a terrific pass.
You saw Luka Doncic do that the other night.
Yeah. Oh boy, don't get me started on that. But it's nice to see Anthony really playing with more comfort. He was always a guy that you knew was going to go out there, give effort, and not make mistakes. And now he seems more confident actually making plays and creating for his teammates and even getting himself to the line. He had 5 free throws tonight. And so that helps him, because obviously he's limited in what he's going to be able to give you offensively. But that added confidence is allowing him to produce a little bit more offensively, both in terms of points and assists, which just, obviously helps make him more valuable because of all the other things that he brings defensively and intangibles and all that good stuff.
I thought
all right,
Leo.
next
I
up-
thought Leo
Oh, yeah, go
struggled.
ahead, Coach.
I'm sorry. I thought Leo impacted the game in so many ways tonight, and yet it wasn't one of his better overall performances. I thought, he's been a good defender, and I thought sometimes he got beat defensively, and Indiana tonight was really poor defensively. But that's the sign of a player that's a winning player. Like there wasn't really anything outstanding, but he still impacted winning in a game that probably was not one of his better games. And that's why, again, going back to our overall theme that's been mentioned here, it's a better fit. These players, complement each other and cover each other when, this aspect is missing. And, Galloway struggled turning the ball over, but he did some other things, right? So Galloway didn't have a perfect game. And yet you win a Big Ten basketball game because these guys are diving on the floor and blocking out and doing things that don't get in the stat sheet. And that's Indiana basketball. That's what makes us do what we do here, and why everyone's tuning in to listen is because of those kinds of plays. And now you're seeing Ballo do it, and Reneau did it in the Purdue game. And Ryan's right. It's just been too long to come, and it hasn't been consistent. Like, it's been a couple, 3 or 4 games now. It could go away again as fast as it's come, but let's hope not.
The visceral experience of watching Indiana basketball over the last 4 games has been so much different than it was earlier in the season.
100%.
Just so much different. And even though, a lot of the lineups that were put out there earlier in the season had higher ceilings and maybe could have flourishes that are better at times than what we see from these lineups now, the consistency, the togetherness, the execution, just all those things that are so important to actually string together wins, it's just it's been there in such higher quantity. And so I just find myself when I'm watching it, and again, part of it may be that it's just, there's kind of a different tone to the season now because of what's been decided for the future. I'm not discounting that, but I also think just the way the guys are playing, it's just made it a lot more fun to watch, and it's not, and I think a lot of fans are having that experience. I think it's interesting. The last meaningful moment I'll mention wasn't even in the game. It's from the coaches show from earlier this week. Coach Woodson hasn't been doing it, but he's been letting assistant coaches and staff members, and Coach Yah was on it this week. And one of the things with Coach Yah, we've had the opportunity to interview him once or twice. I've talked to him a few times and we've exchanged some messages. I've always been really impressed with his intuitive understanding of what Indiana basketball means to the people here and what people look for. What do fans want to see? And I thought he made some really interesting comments that the team has really started to understand what it means to play hard, and that the fans just want to see you play hard. Like, the wins and losses matter, but at the end of the day, the fans want to see you play hard and fight together, and that the guys have really started to understand that together. I think part of that, again, is having guys play more minutes who already understand that, and it lifts everybody else up. But I just thought it was nice to actually hear that from someone within the program, that, look, these expectations, yes, these fans, and Coach Yah didn't say this, but it's kind of the subtext for everything. Yes, these fans can be a little bit crazy sometimes, and they have high standards, beyond what the program has produced recently. But it was nice to hear at the end of the day, the fans just want to see you play hard, play together, and fight. And that's what we're seeing. And that was, I think, part of the problem earlier in the season. You just didn't see that. And the talent wasn't great enough to overcome it. Now you could probably look at it and say there might be less collective talent playing on a minute-by-minute basis, but they're in athleticism and all that stuff, but they're playing better basketball. And fans gravitate toward that, support that, and it's just made the experience of being a fan a lot better over these last few games. Okay, let's go into the numbers. Brought to you by Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you live in Bloomington or the surrounding areas and you want your taxes done right, contact our friend and Chat Mob Hall of Famer Megan Mahaffey. I think I saw her pop in the chat earlier tonight. And her team in Bloomington, Bedford, and Martinsville by calling 812-339-3334 or by visiting jacksonhewitt.com. Coach, I mean, the one stat that just jumps out at you as soon as you look at the box score, and it goes with what you talked about with the offense, 24 assists on 29 made field goals. Just the ball was moving tonight. And it's not that I thought Indiana tonight really used the drive and the dribble effectively. Sometimes there's aimless dribbling. I thought for the most part tonight, when Indiana dribbled, they dribbled to attack, they dribbled to get angles, but they used passing when they should have. And that's why the offense was better. But that is a glorious, assist ratio and really just shows how the ball was shared and how the offense was creating points, not just a bunch of guys going off and making individual plays. So that obviously jumped out. On the negative side, you go 15 of 25 from the free throw line. If Indiana just goes 20 of 25, it's a 10-point victory, and I think people are feeling a little bit better. And Mackenzie Mbako, 0 for 4 from the line. What is that? He's been such a good free throw shooter. I mean,
Myles
that right
Rice,
there is the difference.
Myles Rice is 1 of 4 in the second half.
Yeah. What is that, guys? I mean, just you make a few of those, and I think the score looks a little better. Everybody feels better. But, you obviously compensate by going 10 for 15 from the 3-point line, which we will take. And was nice to see. But, Ryan, what numbers stood out to you?
Well, the assists, speaking of the assists, Trey Galloway had 9 tonight, and he went from having 398 career assists to 407, which jumped Stu Robinson and AJ Guyton into 8th all-time at Indiana. And he has a legitimate shot of passing Randy Whitman for 7th, too. I think he's 25 behind Whitman. If he has a good couple weeks. And we know in the Big Ten, he's a guy who Trey loves to dish out assists when he's playing Big Ten games. So I think it's a legitimate shot.
All the old heads compared Trey to when he came here. They were like, that guy reminds me of Randy Whitman.
Really?
Funny. Yeah.
But yeah, he won't get up to 5th with Jamal Weeks and Damon Bailey at 474, but he's got a good chance to pass Whitman. So that was big. I think, you mentioned the 3-point shooting. I think just in general, Indiana shot 56.9% from the field tonight. I mean, the coaches mentioned it. The offense was popping. They beat Penn State they outdid them in points at the paint. Did they? Yes, they did. And beat them at the 3-point line. You do that, you're going to win. Simple.
Coach, numbers?
Well, the 3-point shooting is just unbelievable. 10 of 15, but you got them in rhythm, and again, the assist total helps that too. 18 points off turnovers. Winning that 18-10. It was 14-4 at halftime. That's your defense helping you on a night when the defense wasn't good. It still generated some points for Indiana. It's just the game of basketball is different with the 3-point line, and it's fun to be on the positive side. 10 3-pointers to 7 for Penn State. Some numbers to just in order to get to the tournament, we can't continue is allowing 53% shooting for a team, which Penn State shot 52.9%, and then the 1.17 or whatever points per possession. Indiana's defense has been a struggle this year. It continued tonight, but man, if the ball's going in, it doesn't really matter, and it's more fun to win by the score of 83-78 than it is to lose 63-60, and you had great defense. So it's more pleasing to do that. But those are some stats on the concern side. Is I don't think we guarded very well. We really didn't guard that action where they downscreened into a DHO. So there was some switching going on. There was 3 men involved in the action, and I think that plays out in some of the numbers. And then the back cuts. We continue to get back cut on defense too much for easy dunks and easy layups, which increases those stats that I shared with you. But let's celebrate the win with the 3-point celebration. Like, just keep putting your hands up, everybody. It's Indiana 3-point barrage tonight. That's the positive.
By the way, the last thing I'll say, I mentioned Mackenzie Mbako going 0 for 4 from the free throw line. He did have 13 points, I think 7 in the first half, 6 in the second half. Maybe the quietest 13 points Mackenzie Mbako has ever had. Like, I didn't even realize it until I looked at the box score, and he wasn't a huge part of the 3-point barrage. He was 1 for 3, but on a couple of occasions did a nice job driving into the basket to get his points. And hey, in a game where a lot of points are scored, you need those. And so credit to Mackenzie for getting in there and played 28 minutes tonight and was able to get 13 points, which was nice to see. Alrighty, coming up here on the Assembly Call as we move into segment 3, we will hand out our Game Balls and Hoosier Hustle Award, discuss a lingering question or two, and then look ahead to what Indiana has coming up next. It's the West Coast trip, Washington and then Oregon. And Coach will maybe give us a little insight on, from a bracketology perspective, where this team sits right now and what these 3 wins in 4 games have meant. Stick with us here on the Assembly Call.
This is Nick Zeisloft. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of The Assembly Call.
All right, I got to get to the script here as Jared stepped out for just a second. You're listening to the Assembly Call postgame show where Indiana tonight was victorious 83-78 over Penn State Nittany Lions. And we're going to go to our game balls, which is brought to you when I can find it here. Brought to you by Bloom Environmental, our friends Allie and James, who I saw the other night in Assembly Hall. They want to help you protect your home's air quality, and the best way to do that is to stop water at the source. Voted Best of B-Town in basement services for 4 years running. Their basement waterproofing and crawl space encapsulation is the best defense your home can have against mold growth and structural damage. Mention us, the Assembly Call, and get 10% off your system. Call today for a free estimate, or if you want to hear Allie talk about anything. She's just a very nice lady. Learn more at www.bloomenviro.com. So, game ball, Ryan, who are you going with?
I got Oumar Ballo, 20 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. I know that you could give it to a couple guys. Trey Galloway certainly warrants consideration, but I thought Ballo was just a rock for Indiana tonight, and he deserves it. I think he's the guy.
You know, I think it's without Ballo's start, I think in the end of that first half to keep Indiana in it, and then some of the stuff he did, I understand that. I think Trey Galloway is the other consideration that you have to go through. And when Indiana was down, he hits two threes and 9 assists. I'm going to go Galloway for game ball. I think Jared has left us a note in the private chat. He went Galloway. So Galloway receives our game ball. That is his second game ball. I think that's did he get the Purdue one? I forget, even though it was just Sunday. But Trey Galloway now has 2. Myles Rice has 8, and Mbako 4, and Oumar Ballo 4. And now it's time for the Hoosier Hustle Award, sponsored by our friends at Evansville Security Services.
Hi, this is Anthony Leal, reminding you to check out our friends at Evansville Security Services. Based in the hometown of IU legend Calvert Chaney, Evansville Security Services has been providing off-duty police officers to businesses and individuals since 2001. In other words, they're in the business of prevention and peace of mind. And remember, prevention cannot be measured. To learn more about how Evansville Security Services can help you preserve your peace of mind by preventing bad outcomes, visit evansvillesecurityservices.com. That's evansvillesecurityservices.com.
Thanks, Anthony. Again, you do all the little things to make everything work so well, including read an ad on our show. So we appreciate that. I think this was a game where Indiana played well for the most part. A lot of hustle plays. Again, I always say offensively, I thought they lacked a little intensity on the defensive end. But, Ryan, where are you going for the Hoosier Hustle Award?
I'm going with the guy who was just talking. I got Anthony Leal. I think that there's not one stat you can point to that says it's Anthony Leal. I just watched him on the court for the game, and the amount of effort he gives every night. You could say the same about Luke Goody. In some ways, Trey Galloway as well. You can say that about him as too. And I could see an argument for Oumar Ballo, but Leal is the difference maker. He's the straw that stirs the drink for this team as far as effort goes, and he has been outstanding this year. And I thought it was again tonight. Just the energy level he brings on both ends elevates the team. And you can't, if you watch him during a game and watch how hard he works, just take a couple possessions and only watch him and just watch that, and you'll understand how much he brings to that team.
Jared has gone with Ballo. You mentioned Ballo, so it's now for me to decide between Leo and Ballo, or go to a third and send it to the chat. Goody had a great block out, Ryan, late, and Leo was there also to clean up the rebound. I think it was a 3-point game with the miss. Those are little things. Yeah. I agree with you on Leo. I think Myles Rice could be up for it as well. I don't know that he had the overall impact that we're talking about with Leo and Goody. I'm going to go with you, my friend. I'm going to go Anthony Leo and give Anthony Leo the Hustle Award. Very, very difficult. My friend Dale Ficklin in the chat, he also went Leo. That's an influence on me. Dale and I like to hang out in right field at Indiana baseball games, so I'm looking forward to that. So I got to go with my buddy Dale. I think we're going to go with Anthony Leo for the Hoosier Hustle Award. That is Anthony's 7th total Hustle Award, and I think you see what we believe in that young man and why Indiana has turned this thing around since he's been playing. All right, the lingering question is, where's Indiana go from this? What's going to happen when they go out west?
Hold on. I was just listening. Are you telling me Oumar Ballo got nothing for this game? No game ball, no hustle award?
I gave him my game ball, but you didn't.
Hey, Ryan. You deserve the hustle award. 36 minutes.
Hey,
filling in for Malik Reneau. Sorry, I just had to come here and jump in. It's a travesty that Oumar Ballo got nothing.
If you wanted to argue your time, you should have stayed. Yeah, you should have stayed before you had to bounce.
The votes have been cast.
Someone else should have voted.
Been cast. The voting is
locked.
over.
It's locked.
It's locked.
Just wanted to throw that in. Okay. Hopefully I'll be back.
All right.
Sorry, had to support my guy Ballo.
He just comes out of nowhere.
Just coming in to derail the show when he's not on it.
We had a flow. I had my lingering question. He was you. He interrupted my lingering question. That's not good. Anyway, how does this play on the road? Right. You got winnable game at Washington. You got a really tough quad one opportunity, which would really be good for the tournament. At Oregon, a tough place to play, but you've seen some teams go out west and they've handled it a little different. Minnesota goes out and wins 2 games out west, and they're on the struggle bus this year. So it's very possible for Indiana to do that. We've talked consistency all year. We're seeing a little more consistent play, Ryan. Is it good enough to travel, in your opinion?
We'll see. I mean, what have we said all year about this team in the last?
Come on, man.
Years?
You know everything.
Yeah, well, I think it can travel to Seattle. I don't know about Oregon, but I think that they've got a real good shot to beat Washington if they play like this. Look, they've played well for 5 straight games. They've played pretty darn well. Haven't closed out all those games, but they played pretty well. And I think that if they can carry that on and carry the energy on the road, more than the offense and the defense, if they can carry the energy on the road, I think they beat Washington. Now, Oregon's another matter, and I think that that's going to be a tough one on the road in Eugene, but we'll see how they handle this road trip. I mean, it's been brutal for most of the teams this year to get out to travel across the country, and they're set to do it for the first time.
Washington is 13-15, and likely not to make the Big Ten tournament. They're currently in a 3-game losing streak, losing at home to Rutgers, on the road at Iowa and Wisconsin by decent margins at Wisconsin. Iowa got them by 6 in Iowa City. And so Saturday, the game, Indiana needs to win that and in order to keep this momentum going. A loss to a team that is sub 500, even though it's on the road and won't be devastating on the resume. There
not good.
There are about maybe you can count 16 teams maybe that have a chance for about 8 spots, 10 spots in the tournament. Tonight Vanderbilt wins and solidifies their resume. They get a road win at Texas A&M. Georgia last night moves ahead of Indiana because they have 3 top 4 seed wins. So you got, like you mentioned it earlier, you can't lose these games. It's vital if you want to go. And the bracketology thing, I think Indiana's best is to get to Dayton. They might be able to get an 11 seed or a top 10 seed if they win out and make a run in the Big Ten tournament. But I think they'd have to win 3 games, 2 or 3 games, plus maybe win out in order to get up to that 10 seed line. I think the 10 seed line is the ceiling for them going forward. But that's without getting into all of the weeds of the comparison. The thing to know for everyone here is it's not a magic number of 20 wins to getting you in, or doesn't a magic number of winning 2 out of the next 3 and magic number, because you got to compare to all of those 16 teams that are playing. So Ohio State has a chance still to get back into it. Wake Forest losing tonight helps Indiana's cause. So get a hold of us at Delphi Brackets or Andy for your questions, but every game matters, and we really won't know. There's no lock for Indiana. You will not know. I will not know for certain until the name is called or not called on Selection Sunday.
Let's win the Big Ten tournament.
Go ahead. Let's say win the Big Ten tournament, which will be right before, a half an hour before the tournament. So, yeah, Sunday, 5:30, 6 o'clock is when you'll really find out, unless Indiana loses, and we don't want that to happen, then we know that they're probably not likely in. But you're listening to the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. Remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel. Use the promo code HOME23 at checkout to give 15% off your first order. It's time for last call. I'm going to briefly give something so then we can wrap it up. But I thought the basketball's been enjoyable lately, and credit the team, credit the coaching staff, and also credit the fans. The second half at Purdue when I was down there was what Assembly Hall was supposed to be. We all want Indiana basketball to be something better than it's been for a long, long time, 8, 9, 10 years at least, since the last Big Ten championship and Sweet 16 run. We want those times back, and it's just been a little bit closer to that with the coaching change coming. Let's stay positive. Let's stay together and hope we have a couple more positive shows before the season is over. Ryan, last call.
Yeah, I think that, if you're somebody who is fond of Mike Woodson, we mentioned it earlier, these are probably going to be the last games he coaches in his career. And I think that we should all be rooting for that to finish well, for him to go out on a high note. Regardless of what you think of the program in the last couple of years, that should be your focus now. There's going to be change, so there's no reason to not. We're not positioning ourselves for a draft pick down the stretch. Like, let's win these games and let's send Mike Woodson out on a high note. He is a legend at Indiana, and there's a bad taste in some people's mouths for how this last couple of years has gone. Let's end it on a high note and a positive. So we can all look back and feel better about this. I think the players have certainly taken that mentality. I think Woodson's taken that mentality. I think we as fans all need to take that mentality and root as hard as we can over these next few weeks. And then, we'll move on, but let's try and create some big memories down the road, or down the stretch of the season.
All right. That's going to do it for our show tonight. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to substack.assemblycall.com to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logo. Special thanks to Eddie, our producer, on the ones and twos behind the scene. And thank you for listening. And we'll be back on Saturday to talk IU hoops after another victory. We'll see you then. Until then,
take it from me, AJ Williams. Keep your elbows in, eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
Here I come, Mrs. Stansoni.
I think they've gotten enough show.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
That's
everybody.
Enough show. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Eddie. Appreciate it. It's always smooth when you're behind the scene.
Beat the Huskies.
Great show.